Welcome to the COO's Corner podcast, the podcast exploring success factors in the world of business operations. And my name is Tamar Nelson, your host, and a specialist in the area of operational resilience. And today we are exploring the whole matter of fostering a culture of quality, making the complex simple. At the heart of any organization is its operations, and I also believe that people are at the core of what we do, and both work together through systems to allow for organizational growth. And right now, we know it can't be business as usual. Stakeholders want more, our customers and our employees want more, whether we're in service or production. Aside from cost and delivery, quality is a key requirement. What is that? Why is it needed? And how might we get it done and for it to be sustainable? Well, in today's episode, we will delve into this topic with Kathy. Kathy Walsh, she is the Director and Principal Consultant of Quality Systems Now, and she helps companies and individuals in regulated industries to solve quality culture problems that increase productivity and master compliance challenges in their marketplace. She has 20 plus years of experience in pharma and medical devices. She's now the Director of Quality Systems Now Consulting. She has a PhD in biology, author of Eliminate the Gobbledygook, Secrets to Writing Plain Language Procedures. I love that title. I will hear more about that. So, Kathy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. That was a brilliant intro. I feel humbled.
We are the one that are humbled.
Oh dear. Everyone tends to stumble over gobbledygook.
Oh! Yes, it's not the usual term that we hear every day, right?
No.
So we're really excited to have you on our program today. It's really a pleasure. When it comes to culture, refining and improving culture is a goal every organization should have on its agenda. As doing so, it pays off in many ways. And what we realize is that the word quality also means different things to different people. To some, it means meeting compliance requirements. To others, it means improving or adding value to those whom they serve. So to start us off, Kathy, please, what is quality? And then by extension, what is a quality culture?
Oh, excellent question. So I think just as a caveat to start off, I think every industry is going to have a slightly different take. From my perspective, coming out of pharmaceuticals and medical devices, our quality is always framed around the product and the safety of the product for the patient. And so it's about product safety and product quality. And so all the quality systems are then all set up around that. All the regulations are all set around delivering a product that, one, it's not going to hurt anyone, it's going to make their life better, it's going to have the right activities, it's going to have the right pharmaceutical effects, and so all the quality aspects within a pharma QMS or quality management system is all sitting around making sure that that patient is not going to have a negative experience with someone's product. So quality systems then are all about trying to deliver that. And so I think that's probably the simplest way to phrase it without delving into specifics of different systems. So it's really the framework to how do you deliver a product that is safe and is efficacious for a patient.
Right. And as you opened, if you apply it to a service industry, it's basically the same thing in terms of delivering or adding value to those whom you serve.
Yes.
Right. And so the that customer-centric approach is very important when it comes to a quality culture. So the center of what we do is really geared towards serving that customer.
Correct. Yeah.
Awesome. And so a true quality environment is where everyone in that system, all the team members, really care about who they serve and the quality of their work and make decisions based on achieving that level of quality all the time, right?
Correct.
And we see that there are a lot of companies that out there where, they have a quality policy on the wall and everybody can recite it. But what we find is that not everybody really have that care component in terms of the quality of their work, and they can truly relate.
They're not living it.
Right? How can we get everyone committed to this culture of quality, Kathy?
Yeah. So I think the first thing to say is it's very difficult to do if you don't have good engagement from those top management leaders. So top down is always the easiest way to instill a quality culture. The top leaders don't necessarily have to understand all the quality nitty-gritty, the details, but they do need to understand the importance of it, and there needs to be positive reinforcement from the top down all the way to the operators on the shop floor. So that would be the first thing that I would say is an absolute must. If you're a middle manager and you're trying to manage up, trying to input a quality culture, it's a bit of an uphill battle. So really, you've got to get that top level engaged, and they need to understand that they might see that quality costs money, but actually quality saves you money in the long run. When you think about reputation and potential recalls of products from the market, and complaints, and potentially if you've got batches of product or whatever it is that you're making, if it fails a release test, or if it fails whatever the test is for it to actually go out the door, then what do you do with that? You've either got to rework it or you've got to throw it away. And so that all costs. And so I think once leadership starts to understand that quality actually saves you money in the long run, and saves you company reputation, then you tend to get a bit more of a buy-in. So the first thing I would say is top management needs to be engaged. And then I think the second piece that's very important is infiltrating that throughout everyone's through their roles, through their job descriptions, through their KPIs, and also within their procedures. And so that the procedures are telling them to do what their job is in a compliant way, so that everyone's working together, everyone's pulling in the same direction.
Yeah. You raised so many excellent points just now, Kathy. You touched on leadership, you touched on cost, and other systems that need to be in place to ensure that happens. I just want to touch on cost for a little bit, because, you mentioned some of the things that that probably persons won't think about, because one of the things that would deter an organization, especially if they're a small organization, from implementing a QMS system, is the cost associated with doing so.
Yes.
What are, aside from the things that you mentioned in terms of the reputation, the customer complaints, to add to that, their processes, the waste in the processes and the inefficiencies and the delay times, what would you say to a business owner that doesn't have a QMS system to encourage them that this is the way to go?
It would depend on their industry as well. But I would think that one of the things that you could start to point them towards is caring about their customer, and starting, so you could go down the heart element, and so caring about your customer. And do you really care about your customer, or is it just marketing spin? Obviously, you wouldn't say it like that. And so I think there is that element. I think you also need to speak to that hard and fast. What's the cost, and do a business case for a quality system. and say these, because a lot of the benefits of a quality system to someone who's never lived it before can be quite challenging to understand the benefit there. And like you say, all the rework, any investigations that you have to do, something, the hot spot within a process that is causing issues. You might have very complex processes that are not integrated.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a quality management system will help you integrate. Also, the element of risk. So, do they do a risk management process? So top leaders are usually all over risk. And so when you're having a conversation with them like this, they'll be thinking, what's the risk if I don't do this and don't spend this money? Can I get can I not spend the money and get the benefit somehow? And so I think you need to get inside their head and think, how do they think? And how do I then convince them?
Yes, very, very, very excellent takeaways there, Kathy. And, one of the things that I've seen in my own experience, two things actually. One is that you may have a company with a QMS and it's tied to one person. So that's the person who drives everything, gets everything in order, tells you when there are the audits, deals with the external audit, certification bodies, etc. And then when that person moves on, everything crashes.
Yeah.
And then you have another organization where they may say they don't have anybody that they can assign to helping them develop that system, or the time to do so. What are some of your thoughts in terms of how to overcome some of those pain points?
Yeah, it's difficult, particularly for smaller companies, because they don't have that cash flow happening. And so obviously that's a reality, and we need to try and move them forward as best as possible. In the situation where they don't have someone and they're just trying to stumble along, I think what you need to do is engage with that senior leader and say, okay, is there someone somewhere? Can we get a delegate in each department?
Mm-hmm.
And you try and train them up so that at least they understand and they can manage their own areas. It's still not integrated. It's still never going to be, wonderful without someone heading it up properly. But at least it gets them started, and they have a QMS. Where you have the situation, you've got one poor quality manager who's keeping all the balls in the air. So yeah, I've actually been in multiple companies where that is the case, and they're seen as the policeman. And so that then becomes a us and them situation often, and they're having very similar problems trying to do their job and do the right thing in terms of quality, and just getting pushback all over the company. So again, it comes back to that top management. What do they want? What is their motivation? And so if they're like kind of having their arm held behind their back saying, I must have a quality management system, then again, they're probably not going to do very well. Yeah. But if that top management is engaged, then they can help increase positive reinforcement through the quality manager and through multiple avenues within the company.
Right. And I like the fact where you said, through multiple avenues. So it's not just one street or one road, multiple
That's
avenues.
Right.
So, I get the vision of something being infiltrated throughout the organization. And I think when that happens, I think Henry Ford said it best, that quality means doing the right thing when no one is looking. So it's not when the auditor is coming or when you're going to get certified or, when the top executives are passing through, but it's when there's recognition at all levels within the organization that quality should be achieved, for everyone's sake, including themselves and their stakeholders, and not just to meet any regulatory approvals. Right. So, and the leadership plays an important part in it. And I think, I saw something from, Forbes and ASQ, and it said, and I quote, that from top down, from top to bottom and bottom to top, the company becomes a quality-driven ecosystem from
Yeah.
the C-suite to the senior leaders, from middle managers to all departments, from the supply chain to customers, all working in concert to achieve mutual objectives and improve operations. Right?
Yeah.
And when you think of that, that's like a machine that's well oiled and moving
That's
very
it.
efficiently. Right?
That's it.
Yeah.
Every part works together with the other. Everything's integrated.
Yeah.
Everything's moving in the right direction. Correct. Yeah.
So we're going to touch into the why now for a little bit, because fundamentally what we want to do is to ensure that whatever product or service that we're offering is safe and effective and meeting or even exceeding the needs of whom we serve, right? And to have our teams have that top of mind at all times, right? But what we have here is a disruption happening. There are a lot of uncertainty in the environment. And what tends to happen is that we want to bury our heads in the sand and to focus more on quantity and not so much on quality. So how does quality impact business operations and allow the organizations to really not only survive but thrive in these disruptive times? What would you say to a company that's doing that?
Yeah, look, I think, well, let's start at the beginning of the pipeline when you're developing a product. And so if you're developing a new widget of whatever, then design. And so you are factoring in quality by design. You're factoring in how you do that at the beginning, before you're even making it, before you've even transferred it into manufacturing. It's all, the design is thinking of that end customer in mind. And so what they're trying to do then is they're looking at all the risks associated for the customer, and they're then trying, within the design of the product, trying to factor those out or reduce and mitigate those risks. So I say at the beginning of your pipeline, design of your product or design even of your service, it's similar. So you start there, and then that infiltrates through the whole pipeline because the design has been thought about up front. And so any R&D, any tech transfers, those sorts of things are all very, very important to get right and to get embedded well within the day-to-day business as usual. So I think that's the first thing. So make sure your product or your service is a quality one. And then you've got your processes, and so how you're doing things. So this will obviously then be impacted by what the product needs. So any specifications, any methods, any ways of doing things should be specified for the product. But then you've got your general things, how you go about doing those. And so that's where your quality department can really help integration. And I think that saves a lot of pain and heartache and obviously then cost. So if your processes are well integrated across the business, then that will bring a lot of benefit. And obviously all of our lean guys, our Six Sigma guys will be all over that.
That's right.
And so that's an area that I think is now well established in many industries as being beneficial, and I think that goes hand in glove with quality. And so it can go hand in glove in terms of cost as well. So the focus of that activity, the process improvement, does need to have that quality oversight, but they work together. Ops and quality are intended to work together. They're not intended to be always hitting heads, which is unfortunate. Sometimes that's what happens.
Wow. Yes, that's true. The alignment of the internal strategies and the structure to support quality systems and growth is key. And I always think of an organization as a body. And if anyone has been listening to the podcast, they'll hear me say that people are the core, the operations is the heart.
Yep.
And, one of the episodes I had, we came up with the skeleton is the formal organization, the nervous system is the informal networks. So I haven't figured out full autonomy yet. What would you argue?
Quality is the brain.
There you have it. There you have it. That was the question. How would you say? So it gels everything together, right? Get everything.
Yeah, I think so.
Moving efficiently.
Yeah, it's the switch box. It's like a switch box, similar to the brain is in the body. It's the making decisions, yes, no, making decisions, yes, no. Obviously, other parts as well do that too, but they are the principal switch box, and to keep that human moving. So, yeah. So good analogy.
Yeah, so we're looking at not an organization, but an organism, right?
Yeah. A big culture.
Exactly. Right. So what I heard you mention something just now. That's something that you see happening a lot. What is the number one mistake that is being made today within organizations from your perspective as it relates to building this culture of quality, and how can we rectify or avoid making those mistakes?
Yeah, look, I think it's a great question, because there's so many different areas that there's a lot of problems that are unique to particular businesses, and so their particular blend of process, product, where they're located, and their regulation requirements. I think it comes back to the top management piece, and so if that's not working, then the business is going to struggle. It doesn't matter what individual processes and things you really put in place. If top management is not engaged, not understanding the benefit, then it's an uphill battle. So I think that's the hardest thing. And I think sometimes when you've got a quality manager who is struggling against top leadership who are not particularly engaged, or they are engaged but not as much as they should be, then I think that quality manager needs to subtly educate. And they can educate in both directions, up and down. Obviously, down's a lot easier. Obviously, sideways as well. I think that relationship between quality and ops can get toxic, and unfortunately, that's not nice, and that's not going to be good for the company. And so that's where the top leadership either comes down on one side or the other, usually, or tries to keep the kids apart. But yeah, I think those I've probably spoken more to they're the pain points, as opposed to specific problems. But I think the personnel and the people can be your best asset, and they can also unfortunately be the worst asset when things are going wrong.
Wow. So we have to pay attention to the people. And it's funny that you mentioned toxicity. We just launched an episode that dealt with that very topic, seeing that need, in organizations, and pulling that conversation out by itself. So, everyone here is invited to listen to that, to hear more about how to overcome that, because it doesn't go well for quality or productivity or any efficiency gains within the organization. So thank you for that, Kathy. Right. So I'm going to the gobbledygook. Did I say it correctly?
Well, that's my pronunciation in Australia. So in North America, I'm sure it's closer to what you're saying, but it's all gobbledygook.
And today we are in Australia, right? Virtually. So what is the right size QMS, and how do organizations know what is the right size QMS for them? Because you can have a system where it may be too light or sparse or ambiguous, and then it can be so heavy and bureaucratic that it's just impossible to maintain. We want to make the complex simple. How do we
Yeah,
go about
exactly. So it's like a road, and on either side of the road you've got ditches.
Yes.
And so the QMS road is the one you want to travel is in the middle. You don't want it too light, where there's no information on how to actually do anything. It's actually really just ticks in the boxes for an order to come through and say, well, yeah, it says that you're doing this, but, you know, there's not enough detail for an employee to go, well, how do I do this part of my job? I'll look at an SOP or a procedure. It's not telling me anything. I've then got to go and talk to someone. So that's one side. It's too light. There's not enough information.
Right.
Then, like you say, on the other side, in the other ditch, is the heavy, cumbersome QMS that doesn't allow you to do anything, and which usually either of them get ignored because they're not useful. So you want to stay on that middle road, that QMS middle road, and the sweet spot, yeah, very much. And the sweet spot will be different for different companies. So it's a matter of scale and scaling what you need. And so a QMS is not necessarily you must have X, Y, Z procedures. It must look like this. You must have so many documents. That's not going to help you. It's actually looking at your business and your operation, saying, what are our processes? Map your processes. Now, if you've done lean, you've probably got all of that already done.
Yeah.
So you know what your key processes are. Okay, what are the controls around the process? Okay, what are the records we need to generate from that process? And there's the beginning of your QMS. And so you're looking at because it's going to be specific to individual departments within the organisation, and also what the organisation makes and does. And so the QMS, obviously, depending on the regulations that, you know, of the industry, there will be compliance requirements that they do need to meet. But it's more about the maturity of the QMS and the maturity of the compliance knowledge on site that's most important. And so I would actually say what should it look like is going to be unique to individual companies. The trick will be to keep things simple. So where you've got complex procedures or you've got complex processes, so they haven't done any lean, they haven't done any Gemba walks, they haven't done any of those things, and so they don't understand their process as well. Mm-hmm. And that's usually then indicative in the QMS. So sometimes when you've got a very heavy, pretty much useless QMS, it also speaks to there being a disconnect within the processes and the business itself. So it's a symptom as opposed to an underlying issue.
Mm.
So
we have to get to the
swings and roundabouts
of that.
Yeah.
And that's also a part of the QMS system. So I'm sure that there are a lot of non-conformances that will arise and indicate that something needs to change in that process. Yeah. And so, you know, it's important that those are addressed and quickly, so that we can make the complex simple. And Kathy is the expert of making the complex simple. This was indeed a fascinating discussion. And not letting you off the hook, there is one question that I asked every guest, right, at the end of the interview, and because I believe that there is power in the questions that you ask. And in your career, Kathy, what's one question that you frequently use when you're working with teams or organizations to get the best outcomes?
I think the simple answer is why. And so, and that, like, I'm thinking about being in a first couple of meetings with a new client. We're in a boardroom where they're talking about all these problems, or they're talking about all these things that they're doing. And so my usual question is to try and dig, and it's just like, why are you doing it? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing it that way? What's the thinking behind that? It's just that inquisitive, trying to get down to that foundation of why people are doing processes or activities the way that they are, particularly when there is issues. And that's usually when you find there's disconnects and areas that aren't integrated, or there's personnel issues, or training and communication problems. So, yeah.
Also, that reminds me of the lean or Kaizen principle of the 5 whys, asking why 5 times to get to the root cause. And we know children do very, very well. Why, mommy? Why do I need to do that? But as we get older, we sometimes just stop at the first one. But really asking that question, I agree with you, and listening, because we sometimes tend to want to jump in, but listening and hearing the responses to those questions will really get us to the root cause. And I think, Kathy, you'd agree with me that when we get to that root cause, it doesn't end there, but we have to correct the issue.
Yeah, that's right. And I think you raised very, very accurately that it's essentially the 5 whys methodology. And I think when you facilitate an activity like that, you actually see lights go on in the people who are giving the responses, and they suddenly realise why they've got the problem. And so it's just like, oh, my job is almost done. So the light's gone on for them. And so then it's all about, how do we mitigate this? How do we fix it? And what do we need to change? Yeah.
And that's where you get the buy-in, right? The sustainability. When everybody understands why and what they need to do and how they can play a part in getting that fixed. Awesome.
Yeah.
Great discussion, Kathy. Thank you so much. This was next level. And I was told that you are the queen of what you do. And I agree wholeheartedly. Right?
Thank you.
In today's discussion, I realized that at the end of the day, culture isn't just one aspect of the game, it is the game. And it is key to accelerating our growth and performance. Thank you again, Kathy, for sharing your wisdom, your experience, and your insights with us today. And to you, our listeners, I want to thank you so much for your time and support. I hope you enjoyed and got massive value from that episode. And if you would like to have a discussion with Kathy about any of the topics that we just discussed, you can connect with her on LinkedIn or at kathy@qualitysystemsnow.com.au. And you can reach out to me at tamara@tamaranelson.com or on LinkedIn at tamara-nelson. If you would like to be a guest or to share any feedback or suggestions you may have, I'd love to hear from you and to hear about your quality journey as well. So please share and subscribe. If you found this valuable, give us a thumbs up or leave a rating on Apple Podcasts. And do join us again for another information-packed episode. And until next time, as we say in Jamaica, walk good.